Welcome back, everyone, to the South End Zone. I don't really feel like doing this, Tyler. Do we
You know
have to
what?
do this?
Chad. It's gonna be okay. You were there for me, and I'm gonna be there for you. Um, we're gonna get through this. How do you feel right now? Tell me how you feel. How do you
I
feel,
feel like
Chad?
Brian Kelly choked again. Like what the hell? And here's the thing. Like we can point. There's plenty of blame to go on Nussmeier for like three really bad interceptions. I mean, three really bad interceptions. One of them, he's rolling to his left, up by 10. We don't need to do anything crazy or risky. Throws it across his body into the middle of the field, right into double, maybe triple coverage, the corners underneath, and just picks it off. The second one throws an out route to the side, throws it way too far inside, and again, in both cases, probably didn't need to do it. Like either throw the ball away or he could have run on the first one, and on the second one, you got to find somebody else or just throw that ball into the stands. You're still at that point. You're still up, and then or no, actually at that point I think we were down because we had the field goal muff, which was crazy, like snapping the ball into the holder's face while he's facing in the wrong direction. Crazy to me, but and then the last one where he just dumps it off to the defender, which was a great read by or a great scheme by Texas A&M where they had the linebacker try to kind of fake a twist where he's going out around to the outside
Mhm.
and then he just drops off and picks up the running back as
Yeah.
soon as Nussmeier goes to check it down. So those are some of it was good play by Texas A&M. No discredit to them. They came and they did their thing, but Nussmeier made some pretty bad decisions. And we've talked about this before. There's sometimes where like when the defense is playing coverage, you have the ability to run and keep them honest, and run and pick up first downs, or run and at least keep your team alive without throwing it into coverage and giving
Hmm.
up picks. And it's happened a few times where it's almost cost LSU games, South Carolina and Ole Miss to be exact, and they were able to escape with those. But I want to get to the real problem was the real problem, which was Brian Kelly and Blake Baker. As much credit as we have given them so far this year, to completely fail to prepare for Marcel Reed at quarterback, who had already played multiple games.
Hmm.
Okay. Marcel Reed had already played in 3 games, 3.5 games up until that point. They had this little revolving door at quarterback where they started with Wegman, then he kind of fell on hard times, struggled a little bit. They brought in Reed. He played well, won 3 games. And for some reason, they brought Wegman back into the starting role because he was a little bit banged up once he
Hmm.
got healthy. And then he had a really good game against Missouri. I think that kind of surprised Missouri. I think they were preparing for Marcel Reed. And then um, and I can kind of understand that to a certain degree because he's a little banged up, and also Reed's been playing better. So for Missouri to get caught off guard by Wegman starting is a little bit understandable. Also, Missouri's not that good,
Yeah.
as we saw this weekend when Alabama just destroyed them. Granted, they played with their backup quarterback most of that game, but no, to completely because Greg Penn said it in the post game press conference, or not press conference, but just in two reporters by the lockers after the game, that they didn't prepare at all for Marcel Reed. Like they didn't think he was going to come in. They didn't prepare for it, and so they schemed so well that they ejected Connor Wegman from the game because he was terrible.
Yeah.
And you were so good there that your failure to prepare at all for Marcel Reed and the
Hmm.
just very simple zone read plays, all he's
Literally,
doing is like
but ran it
either giving
well,
it to Le'Veon
so
Moss or he's
well,
pulling it. And we've got two
so
or three
well.
guys going after the wrong guy
Yeah.
every time
Yeah, dude, he pulled that like that read on the goal on the like inside the
on the
5.
last
He
touchdown. Yeah,
literally almost like ran with the running back like as you were tackling him, and like you guys literally had the running back wrapped, and he still had the ball there, and he
Savion
just
Jones could have
yanked it.
tackled both of them. Savion Jones could have tackled both of them if he wanted to. Like you just blow
Like
them both up,
he
blow
threw
the
two
whole thing up,
times,
blow
twice.
the mesh.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's I think that's what you should be targeting anyway.
Yeah.
Is
The mesh point.
if you get to it early enough, blow
Yeah.
up the mesh point.
Yeah.
Like you hit both of them.
Yeah, dude, that was insane. I was like, I legit, he got me. I was like, oh my god, that's a crazy stop. And then he's just out the back door. I'm like, oh, never mind. He threw twice. He
Mm-hmm.
had 2 passes.
Yeah. Well, the one big play was a killer
Yeah.
because he hadn't thrown the ball yet, and LSU had just scored to cut it to 5.
Yep.
Could have cut it to 3 if they got the 2-point conversion, but failed to do that. And that was another one where I was like, Nussmeier, like of all the dumb throws that you make,
He just throws out the back of the
where
end zone. Doesn't even
why
give him
would
a
you throw it out of the
chance.
back of the end zone? Like just throw it where even if it gets picked off, who cares?
Yeah.
Like just try to convert it. You cannot
Yeah,
convert
not
it in the
even
stands.
put it in the
So
end zone and get like, listen, if it's a pick, the
something
play's dead
PI or
anyway.
something. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
get PI. You can't get anything if you throw it into the stands.
I was
Anyway,
gonna say the play's dead no matter what, even if they intercept it. Like it might as well just
right.
throw it up.
But yeah, so that next possession, Marcel Reed comes out and LSU's cut it to 5. You kind of weather the storm a little bit, and you get a stop, you get the ball back, you go down and score, punch him in the mouth again, and then you lock down that read option shit, and it's over, and you
Yeah.
take control back of the game. Boom, 54 yards on the first play. So and then they're in the end zone like a few plays later, because it was that kind of game. But anyway, this is so you have a lot of this is on Nussmeier because again you're up 17-7 mid third quarter. You do not need to be trying to make that throw into that tight window across your body into the middle of the field while you're rolling towards the sideline. Throw the ball away, run it out of bounds. There was also another receiver on the sideline who was in single coverage, who was up in front of his man. And all you had to do is you throw that ball low to where either he catches it or nobody catches it. And he was wide open, and Nussmeier didn't see him, locked in on Aaron Anderson and threw it into coverage and got it picked off. Those are the kinds of things where, like, if you make the right play, you possibly don't even give A&M a chance to get back into the game.
Right.
But you're trying to do too much. And so that part of it's on Nussmeier and those other throws. Although again, credit to Texas A&M, they ran some pressure schemes and coverage that like the combination of how they covered and how they mixed things up to where they lied to his eyes was really good and put him in some of those positions. And the fact that LSU couldn't run the ball didn't help. But it was just ugly. But the biggest choke to me was for the coaching staff to have completely failed to prepare for a completely different style quarterback that had already played in 3 starts to a 3-0 record.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
beyond me.
It's like it's not even like and it's like the comparison's like not the same with like Jalen Hurts and Tua because we never seen Tua before. But like you have Marcel Reed on film in 3 games in this season alone, like and just I mean obviously you don't plan on hurting or having not hurting but or him playing so poorly that he gets pulled, right?
Right.
Like that was same with us. Like we were on Ewer's ass so much that they put in Arch Manning. But once again, Arch Manning's also on film.
Right. But
Like
you have to recognize that that's a possibility because it's
of
already
course,
happened this year
of
where he's
course.
gotten benched for performance.
Exactly. It's like they don't there's a chance that he's not on the longest leash in the world. Like they may yank him when they feel necessary, especially at home when they're trying to protect an undefeated conference record, which is crazy. Like, but yeah, dude, I wish I could run that zone read so well on NCAA 25, but I can't.
I've got a nice crisp Fresca to ease my pain, and
there we go.
We're gonna motor along because LSU is still alive.
Everybody's still alive.
We're still alive. You take care of business at home against Alabama. You go on the road into the swamp against Florida, which is becoming a little, maybe it's like Arkansas where I'm like unnecessarily nervous about it, but there's something about the way that Florida's been playing lately that I'm like, man, I don't know. Like it's not this gimme that I kind of thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
LSU should win that game, but it's not
Yeah.
a guarantee. And you got to take care of business with Alabama first, obviously. But then
Yeah.
you got Vanderbilt and Oklahoma coming into Baton Rouge, which Vanderbilt plays much better at home than they do on the road. So you have that going for you. Oklahoma has been terrible. So you beat Alabama next week,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden things start to really open up to where you're right back into the thick of things, and you're in that conversation, and you're even in the conversation for making it to Atlanta anyway,
Yeah. Seriously.
because the way it is right now, you got Georgia with one loss, Texas with one loss, LSU with one loss, Texas A&M with no losses,
And
and
Tennessee with
then
one.
Tennessee with one. Everybody else has two losses or more.
Mhm. And we play
So
Tennessee.
yeah, you play Tennessee and you play Ole
Ole Miss.
Miss. And here's what's crazy though. So to this conversation about, and we're going to get into it later because we'll do our preview of Week 10 coming up, but just a little tease of that preview. You want to tell me the regular season doesn't matter anymore?
Yeah. Right.
Well, let me tell you this. Do you think a two-loss LSU versus two-loss Alabama game in November would have any playoff implications in a 14 playoff?
Exactly, dude. Or even yeah.
Now it's a playoff game.
Yep. Yep.
So don't tell me it doesn't mean anything. This is what I was talking about. More games mean something now.
Exactly. More games for more teams means something.
Now, each individual game may not mean as much on its own, where like if you lose, you're out.
Yeah. Like the weight of the world is on every game.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I understand like there's not this overloaded meaningful or
Yeah.
meaning in each game,
But like
but there
longevity
is
wise.
there is meaning. There's more
Yeah.
meaning across more games, and you've elevated the meaningful nature of some of these late season games that
Mhm.
wouldn't have been that way before. So anyway,
Yeah. And for more
um,
teams.
and one more quick thing. Look, you know how we roll here.
Mhm.
It ain't over till it's over, and Texas A&M is still Texas 8-4 until proven otherwise.
Listen,
They got to go on the
7-1.
road to South Carolina to Williams-Brice Stadium
Oh,
in
at night.
Columbia at night this weekend. Beaver Ball will be in full effect, so don't rest on your laurels, Texas A&M. It ain't over yet, and they've got Auburn as well. I think, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
they go South Carolina, New Mexico State, gross, Auburn, and Texas.
Yes, yes. Auburn and Texas. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So 8-4 is still very much in the picture. All right,
Mhm.
because I could see them tail spinning through those games. Now, I don't see that happening, but I could. So we will see. Speaking of Texas, they survived in Nashville, 27-24 against
Barely.
Vandy, and
Barely.
yeah, bro, Vandy almost got that onside kick, and then it
Dude.
was on.
I want to say shout out to Diego Pavia for
Mm-hmm.
literally willing his team on what seemed to be like maybe one good leg, if that, to try
Yeah.
to at least put them in this game and a place to win. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's and I always I forget the new Vandy coach's name. What's this guy's name?
Clark Lee.
Yeah. Dude, he is the perfect guy to be in Nashville right now. He's
Mm-hmm.
got these kids believing in themselves. He's got these kids playing well, and he's
Mm-hmm.
got them playing like dynamic, like multiple scheme offensive like football. Like, and you got a quarterback who's willing to lead this team to wherever they may go. Like, I
Right.
don't know. It's pretty impressive to see what some good coaching and the transfer portal can do for a team. Like
Absolutely.
in a short amount of time. You're talking about Vanderbilt. I can't do it as well as you, Chad. That they have, what was it, 3-40 something in the SEC
Right.
in the last however many seasons, like to almost
Yeah.
beating Alabama and Texas in the
Right.
same year. Like that's something to pay attention to, and that's something to put some respect on Vanderbilt's name. I am.
That's
How
right.
could you not at this point? Like, you gotta respect Vanderbilt, and I think Texas may be on fraud watch. Just
Yeah.
saying.
And so the quickest ever transitive triangle is this one. Alabama beats Missouri 34-0 after Missouri beat Vanderbilt in overtime earlier this year, and Vanderbilt beat Alabama. So like that snake ate itself real quick.
Close that loop.
Just the only thing that would be like a tighter triangle than this is if it was just a line and it was like
Yeah.
Alabama beat Vanderbilt later and it overcame the fact that they had
Yeah.
lost to Vanderbilt earlier. So this is about as close as it gets. And look, all due respect to Alabama, yeah, they got healthy in that game. They looked good, but it wasn't difficult to look good. And they really didn't look that great early.
No.
They were struggling early, and then Brady Cook gets knocked out of the game, and the wheels just start to come off. Missouri could not move the ball. They looked like Michigan with no quarterback. Like it was ugly, and Alabama just rolled them, and they just kind of really rolled over and played dead, which was really crazy because up until that point, Missouri was still technically, mathematically in the thick of it because they only had one SEC loss,
Yeah, now they're
that one to
probably
Texas A&M. But
yeah.
now, like you're going to see this team is about to start sliding into oblivion because they just don't have it, and
No,
they're not
unfortunately
going to
not.
get it. No,
And they try to give them chance after
Arkansas,
chance, you know?
right?
Arkansas
Arkansas, on the other hand, blew the doors off of Mississippi State,
might
a
be better
team
than
that had
us.
been giving Georgia trouble, Texas A&M trouble, and this is a team that LSU just beat the doors off of 2 weeks ago. And I know it was a close game until Whitweeks made that incredible play right by the goal line, but this Arkansas team, Taylor Green, just like he was on fire. He was throwing the
Mhm.
ball all over the field. He was running the ball all over the field. Jaquindon Jackson was running the ball all over the field. Like they were getting it done, and Mississippi State had no answer for it.
Yeah, like I mean, who knows? Like, where does this is the SEC? What in the SEC makes sense anymore? The answer is a whole lot of
Nothing.
nothing. The
Nothing.
answer is a whole lot of nothing because anybody literally can beat anybody, and like you're talking
Uh-huh.
about like teams being transitively better than themselves within like a
Yes.
2 week period. Like
Right.
it's like, oh,
Like
okay, and somehow back.
Alabama's better than Alabama,
Yep, Alabama's better than themselves. Like it
yeah,
doesn't, and
and
worse than
Missouri's worse than
themselves.
themselves.
Yeah,
Missouri's
no,
worse than
serious.
themselves.
Yeah, right. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Listen, but Taylor Green and Jaquindon Jackson, like they've shown flashes for like a
Mhm.
quarter at a time
Mhm.
throughout the season, and Sam Pittman being Sam Pittman and whatever you want to say about him, but
Mhm.
could he have the Razorbacks like playing like some decent football, like
He already
when it
does.
matters? Like,
He already
could he?
does.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like he might just like
Mhm.
I don't know, man. And
Yeah, he. I'd have to pull up the old SEC standings again, but I'm
Braylon Russell,
guessing I'm guessing
Braylon
they're right
Russell,
there in the thick of it.
that kid,
Let's see. Say what?
that Braylon Russell, that number
Oh yeah,
0, that Arkansas running back,
yeah.
built like a truck, dude. Oh my
Hmm.
god, 175 yards rushing on 16 carries, 10.9. Listen, Hogs might be playing some football here in November. We'll have to see here.
So look, here's
Something to
our
keep an eye on.
updated SEC standings here. Texas A&M and Georgia at the top at 5-0 and 4-1 respectively. Then you got Tennessee, Texas, and LSU all tied at 3-1 for third place through fifth place, and then you got Alabama and Arkansas tied for sixth place in the SEC. Raise your hand if you had Alabama and Arkansas being tied for sixth place in the SEC in
Nope,
your prediction models for the beginning of the season, because I
nope.
didn't. And there's Missouri and Ole Miss and Vanderbilt and Florida all tied at 2-2, with South Carolina, bringing in the last of the teams that have a shot at anything before you get to the one win teams, Oklahoma, Auburn, and Kentucky, and then there's Mississippi State. That Mississippi State team, it's kind of crazy because I I would like to see
They're
them
better
play
than they look.
Missouri because I bet you they beat Missouri,
Hmm.
even though they're
Yeah,
0-5, and Missouri's like 3-2 or 3-1, 2-2.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a wild SEC right now, but that's what we're here for. Like we are here to break it down and to watch all the chaos unfold. Ole Miss took care of Oklahoma. That one was kind of ugly and weird as well, but Ole Miss got it done, 26-14. Not much to talk about there. They did get a lot of their defensive linemen. Have Prince Amumielin, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, was back on their defensive line. There's the thumbs up. Thank you. I guess I pronounced it correctly. So but Trey Harris was out. So I think Ole Miss without Trey Harris versus with Trey Harris is a completely different team. You saw that in the LSU game where they were one team in the first half of that game, and then a much different team late in the second half of that game after he went out with that hip injury. I mean, LSU was still in the game, but then when they really finalized their comeback was when he was out of the game. And I don't know that they win if he's still in there. So moving out of the SEC, Oregon took care of Illinois, maintaining that number one spot. Illinois, it's like they're just good enough to hang around for a little while, and then whether it's Penn State or Michigan, whoever, like it's gonna be tough sledding for them. They fall outside the top 25 now. Penn State, I thought this was going to be a little bit better game than it ended up. The score indicates because it was tighter than that. Drew Aller leaving that game early gave Wisconsin a chance, but ultimately State's defense and that.
Shout out to both.
What's the vibes up there where you are with that Penn State squad?
Listen, shout out to Bo Perbula, man. He's a local kid from York. His Penn State in a way has this thing where they have this a lovable backup quarterback that they put in different schemes throughout the year. Like when Trace McSorley was playing, it was this kid named Tommy Stevens who would you would see him they would put a wildcat type of offense, and they would put McSorley out a receiver and Stevens in, or they would put Stevens in a receiver. And that's kind of what they've been doing with Perbula. They've been putting him in almost as a wildcat quarterback, and they'll just, run left, run right, and he'll just kind of run behind the line. Very athletic kid and a decent arm. I forget what what year he is. I think he's either a year behind Aller, or they might even be the same age. I'm not sure. Okay. But he's, he stepped up, and I'm not shocked that this turned out the way it did, because he is a very good player. Stepped up in a big way. Obviously, Katron and Singleton were doing their thing, on the ground. I think overall, I'm not shocked to the result. I think people thought that the Nittany Lions were going to stub their toe. Nothing to me said this was going to be the game. I didn't want to be overconfident. I know that they almost should have and could have lost to USC, but who knows what USC even is at this point. But I think that if Perbula has to play again, which I don't think is going to be the case, he could get it done if they need it. But yeah, I think it's all systems go here for Penn State, and they got Ohio State coming into town this weekend, I believe. So that should
they do. Yeah, they do. It's a day game though, which is stupid, but we'll get into that in our preview.
You want to know why, Chad? Because James Franklin is scared to lose the whiteout. He doesn't want it anymore. So they host Washington for the whiteout, I believe, the weekend after, because he's too scared. It used to always be whoever came to town versus Ohio State or Michigan State, but now it's we want to play Minnesota or Iowa.
It's not homecoming.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The whole point is to use the whiteout to win.
Yeah, exactly. To will your team against a good team.
It's what A&M just did to us. They had a blackout.
That was cool, and I like the LSU white on white.
Shout out to them. It was good. And I'm wearing my black LSU shirt today in mourning, because I hated that game. But yeah, I mean, look, it worked out for them. It brings a different level of energy when you do that. There's a oneness that it brings about. Right. So I don't understand it, but yeah, it's very, very weak of James Franklin. It's interesting though. We'll get into that game later, but two coaches who can't win big games are going to play against each other in a really big game.
Yep. Yep. And if you ask either team, they don't think they're going to win. If you ask fans on either side, they don't think they're going to win.
It's the resistible force versus the movable object.
The very movable
Which one
object.
of them's going to give in more? So here we go. Speaking of Ohio State.
Oh my God.
Nebraska gave them all they could handle, and that's not a very good Nebraska team. That team got obliterated by Indiana a week ago, and they took Ohio State within a breath of their life.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see. Ryan Day tried to blow it, but
listen, the refs tried to give it to the game to Nebraska too, down the stretch with that targeting.
Well, they did it both ways. They
They
tried
did.
to
It was
give
like
it to
OPI.
Ohio State, and then they tried to give it back.
Right. It was like OPI, and they also had targeting like soon
Mm-hmm.
after. Like it was like a bunch of weird
Yeah,
stuff. Like I don't know. I think that Nebraska could have or should have won this game. Like it was in
yeah,
their hands for sure. I don't
for
know. We'll
sure,
have to
for
see.
sure. Well, one that was not in the underdog's
Gross.
hands was Miami, Florida
Yuck.
State. This is disgusting, and this game used to mean something, and now it doesn't.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy too. Like, it would be really interesting to see Miami against Notre Dame because I think both of them are doing this really clever way of avoiding anything difficult.
Hmm.
With the exception of Notre Dame has that real big opening win at Texas A&M to start the season,
Which is looking better and better.
which keeps looking better, correct. But it was with Connor Wegman. You saw what Notre Dame looked like. I mean, what Texas A&M looked like with Connor
Hmm.
Wegman at quarterback. He's terrible. Um, so I don't know how, if they play A&M right now with Marcel Reed at quarterback, does that game still go the same way? I don't know. Because they lost to Northern Illinois, similar style, with that zone read and
Hmm.
just running the option with the quarterback, the running quarterback, and a really good stable of running backs. So I don't know. But speaking of Notre Dame, they took Navy to the woodshed as I predicted because Navy
Yeah.
hasn't played anybody either.
I
Even
know.
worse, Army and Navy have two of the worst schedules so far of any schools in the country. Like they're like 130 and 131 or something like that in the
Yeah.
country in strength of schedule. So do not be surprised. I actually think Air Force is going to give Army all they can handle this weekend. We'll get into that later too. Notre Dame just, like I said, they just obliterated Navy, took them out of the
I know.
discussion. We were having all this discussion about
Like
them playing in the playoffs possibly or anything like
we
that.
all
That ain't happening.
knew. Like it's like we all like like this is the expected result, but it's not the result we wanted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like we wanted it. Like the service academies playing like legitimate football throughout the season. Well, I shouldn't say legitimate, I guess, considering the schedule, but
Yeah.
being undefeated, both of them, and being ranked simultaneously, and having the Army Navy game potentially happen twice in a season, and then having
Hmm.
such and such playoff implications potentially down the road. It's just Army and
Yeah.
Navy football are as United States, literally as America gets.
Right.
Like no, like you know what I mean. So
Yeah, and
this
like
is the like
we wanted Loyola of Chicago to win the national championship
right.
that year, but
Hmm.
we knew they weren't going to. It was cool that they made it to the Final Four, but we knew that
Yeah,
was that Cinderella's the coach was going to turn into a pumpkin soon
yeah,
enough, and
hmm
it did.
for sure.
Um, so one that I was a little bit surprised with.
Ooh,
I mean,
I
it
did not
shouldn't be
see
that
this.
surprising because this is a big rivalry between these two schools, but Kansas State is just so much better. I really thought they were going to just open up a can on Kansas, and they did not. Kansas gave them a real big scare. I don't know if this is going to ding Kansas because I think they're still a really good team. They're a really sneaky sleeper type for the playoff. Um, with that quarterback, what's his name? Avery
Who?
Johnson.
Yeah,
I can't, it always throws me because I'm like he's named after someone else famous. Um,
right.
so, but anyway, yeah, they got it done. They stayed alive. So you survive in advance, and you're still alive for the playoff and the Big 12 and all that stuff. So we'll see. Pittsburgh. So we talked about Penn State and Ohio State. Pitt is still undefeated because they took Kyle McCord, former Ohio State quarterback, to the woodshed too. 5 interceptions, 3 pick 6s.
Dog.
Imagine going from Ohio State, national championship contender, and you transfer to Syracuse to get pick 6 3 times by Pitt.
Dude, and he's been like
Man.
playing like well for like overall, like he's been playing like
Mm-hmm.
well for Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, and listen, we talk about the ACC all roads being Clemson and Miami, but Pitt's still there, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, look,
So
Eli
we'll have to
Holstein,
see.
former Alabama quarterback.
Yeah, dude.
Like it's again, your transfer portal argument continues to hold weight because it's like who's going to be the next guy after Milrow? Because
Right.
it could have been that guy, but it's not.
Yeah.
Uh, so Indiana got it done against Washington. No surprise there. They remain undefeated, and they're setting up what could be a very, very big matchup down the road when they get to face Ohio State. So we will see how that collision course continues. As Ohio State has, they got more work to do before they even get there. They might get bounced this weekend, and I don't know. Does the regular season still matter? Anyway, um, BYU.
This was
It
silly.
was so weird that they favored UCF in this
Yeah,
game by two and a
I,
half points, but they
right.
did.
They did. I was just like, I like looked around and I'm like, am I? I'm like,
Yeah,
am I?
exactly.
Like, am I like see it? Like, I hammered BYU plus 2.5. I should have taken
Yes.
a money line. I'm just like,
Right,
what am I
right.
missing here?
How could you
Like,
not? Right.
maybe
And
because
BYU proved you right.
yeah,
They got it done. They got it done
yeah.
as well. So very nice there. Colorado continues to stay alive in the hunt. Also in the Big 12, they beat Cincinnati, and I mean, I don't think they're that good. Their defense isn't very good, but they can score with and like it.
Mhm.
If you happen to screw around and like turn the ball over, or I don't know, get a holding penalty and then end up with third and long, and you end up having to punt, and it's a one score game, you're asking for it because Shador
Yeah.
Sanders is going to find a way. So that one's kind of interesting. And then of course, Friday night we got to see Boise State and our boy Ashton Jeanty um, go into Vegas and beat
Mhm.
UNLV in a very tough game, and they finished it off. Ashton Jeanty getting the late touchdown to win it. Looked like he had it in the first time, and that would have been a
Yeah.
much better like Heisman moment play
Mhm.
where he broke a few tackles and spun to the outside, and then
Dude,
but he got stood up a little bit. It looked like he got into me, but he got in on the next play, so it was all right.
people are trying to say like, bro, people are trying to like use this game as a way to like discredit him
Mm-hmm.
because he only ran 430 yards and a touchdown. Only.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like people want to take this away from him so badly, which because they're like, oh, who does he play? I was like, well, ask Oregon. Ask Oregon,
Right.
the number
So
one team in the country. Like, I
so
don't
about that.
like what are we like? I understand, like, listen,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard it said perfectly this morning. Every so many SEC teams and Big Ten were trying to buy him away from Boise State, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm staying. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what?
Shout out to him.
If he was running behind an SEC offensive line, he would against
Mm-hmm.
you know I know that it's Mountain West defenses, but guess what? SEC defenses get met with SEC offensive lines.
Right.
So like, guess what? He's still gonna do the same thing. He's doing Barry Sanders numbers,
Oh
and
yeah.
people are literally just stacking the box, just like they did against Barry, just like they did against Herschel Walker, just like they did against any good
Problem
running back in the
the
history of
problem
the
with
game. They
stacking the
stacked the
box
box.
is you better make the tackle,
Right, and
because if
you can't tackle him.
you don't get him at the first level, he's gone.
Exactly. It's like there's nobody
Mm-hmm.
behind you to help you. Like,
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? I still
Mm-hmm.
think he's Heisman front runner, but right now the guys going to New York are going to be, at least as of my opinion, are Jeanty, Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter, and then whoever else you want
Dylan
to throw
Gabriel
in.
probably.
Yeah, whoever
Um,
else you want to throw in as like a
yeah.
as like an attaboy, like to throw in
Yep.
there. But those are your three, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And I'll say this too about Boise State, and this is just more of like a comment on how dumb people are when they have their takes about stuff is, and I'm mostly speaking to like the AP, your average AP voter, your average Heisman voter, your average whatever, all these people who for some reason, because they write articles and they aren't even I bet you, I don't know, 75% of them never played even like high school sports. I've seen some of these people who like write like, these are like, they're kind of nerds who like, they have, they're not in great shape. I'll put it
Mhm,
that way. Okay. So they don't really completely know what it takes. And that's why I think they fail to understand why things happen the way that they do on a football
mhm.
field, on a basketball court, whatever the case may be. Vanderbilt hosts Texas, 5 versus 25. If Vanderbilt beats Texas in that game, where do you think Vanderbilt ends up?
Mm. According to the
At
AP,
at
probably not
number
very high.
five, at number 5 versus number 25. Do you think they probably get into the top 15? Probably
Hopefully,
so. They probably like rocket up.
yeah.
They came within a field goal of beating Texas.
They're not ranked
Okay,
anymore, right?
they got bounced out of the top 25.
Yep, and Mizzou is still ranked.
Why the hell are you bouncing them out of the top 25 for losing to a team you said is 20 spots better than them? If
Right, by
anything,
3.
they probably should have moved up a little bit because they're better than you thought they were.
Right.
They're probably a top 20 team based on what they did.
Yeah.
Based on the actual performance. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is in relation to this Boise State team and what they did with Oregon is this is how stupid those voters are. If Boise State had beaten Oregon in that first game, well, it was the second game for Boise State. Yeah.
Of their season.
Yeah. If they had beaten Oregon in that game, Boise State is probably still like 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And Oregon, like their ranking wouldn't change. They're 17th right now. They may be like 2 or 3 spots higher.
Yep.
They're not going to be number 1.
Nope.
And where would Oregon be?
Right.
Like 8, 9,
yeah,
7.
Not number 1. That's for damn sure.
Not sure as hell wouldn't be number 1.
Not
It's the same
4.
2 teams. It's the same 2 teams.
Yeah.
Boise State hadn't lost any other games.
Right.
So what? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Like the way that game went, it was a field goal at the beginning of the season. And if one team wins a very tight game at home,
yeah,
they get to be the number 1 team in the country.
Right. And you think if
and the team that lost that game is number 17.
Right. You think if Oregon moves up the ranking, so shouldn't Boise State? Because that's like their only like
it's like whatever your predisposed notions are. That's why I love the fact that we're going to this 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
Because right now you have so many undefeated teams, and none of them are in the top 25. Are not in the top 10. Like,
yeah.
You have like Indiana outside the top 10. BYU outside the top 10. Like all these teams outside the top 10, and they haven't lost a game yet. You got Boise State sitting at 17. They almost beat the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, by their
what makes Oregon better? Just
apparently
your
perception? A field goal. Yeah, a field goal. Apparently a field goal and just
perception. Preconceived notions before the season started.
Right.
So you left Vanderbilt out of the top 25. And Alabama lost to Vanderbilt? Anyway, one last time. I had to do it. So anyway, that just about wraps it up. We are going to see you guys later on this week where we will do our preview for the upcoming games for this weekend. Georgia's got a big one coming up. It's not a huge high-profile matchup, but it's still a big one. The biggest cocktail party of them all. We're going to get it done. And while LSU and Alabama take a week off to lick their wounds and get ready to beat each other to death, there's a whole lot of other really good matchups. We will preview them later on this week. But for now, I'm Chad. He is Tyler. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe. This is the South End Zone, and we are out of here, if I could actually get the words out.